Hi everyone, this is Linda here, and I'm really happy that you've joined the pre-concert talk for our Mozart hour, which is happening in just 1 hour's time. We have 3 sonatas for you today, and I just thought I would introduce each of those for today's, and also to talk a little bit about my experience in Salzburg. Of course, many of you will remember that Mozart was born in Salzburg and Austria, and this is a really cute little town. I remember already a couple of times I've been there. So yeah, it's one of the most pleasant places to be in the world, in Salzburg. And I was there a couple of times for the classes, and I remember really admiring the beautiful architecture and the landscape and the nature, and it's just one of the most amazing places to be. Yeah, so before we start going into the repertoire and talking about that, I would like to mention that Mozart, of course, is well known and so famous for his prodigious ability with the keyboard, or the early keyboard instruments, the piano as we now know it. And it's very interesting to know that all his violin sonatas are in major keys except for one of them. So the E minor one we played last week, and today we've got all major keys. So we have C major, G major, and A major. So you'll remember that, of course, Mozart growing up, we talked about last time his first ever composition when he was just 5 years old, the Minuet and Trio. So, of course, when his compositional style started maturing, and he was traveling and concertizing everywhere and much loved by the public, so he got to composing these more mature sonatas for violin and piano. He started out by the very early ones, very much more simple in their structure. But now, of course, we come to what we're going to present a little later today. This is a very special program because we have 3 of perhaps the most radiant of Mozart's sonatas for violin and piano. And of course, Mozart, his father, Leopold Mozart, he often played with his young son, especially in his hometown. And of course, Leopold traveled with the children, so with Wolfgang and with Maria, his sister, and they often played 4-hand duets on the piano, and Leopold on the violin. Just something about Leopold that perhaps you didn't know before. He wrote a famous treatise on fundamentals of violin technique, and as he actually founded in the day, he talked about various things with posture and other interesting things to do with violin study, and it's highly regarded until this day as a very interesting historical document. So Leopold, I guess, would have inspired so much Mozart and all that he wanted to do with his sonata writing for violin and piano. So now we go into the program for today. So we have opening the C major sonata, and this is Köchel 296. Next time we'll talk in more detail about this man called von Köchel, but yeah, he was the gentleman who had the formidable task of cataloging all Mozart's works. So the Sonata Köchel 296, C major, opens with such a lot of boundless energy that, yeah, it's marked allegro vivace, so it's lively and fast and very vigorous as well. And there's a lot of material that really shines through in the piano part as being some of Mozart's most radiant of pieces in the violin repertoire, I have to say. A lot of people think that this sonata is quite underrated. A lot of people think that it should be played more, and I tend to agree. I think it's an amazing piece, and it's actually got the most beautiful slow movement. Some of you may have heard from the little video fragment a few days ago, some of the second movement. So we turn over to that second movement. It's marked andante sostenuto, which means at a walking pace and sustained. So this is in 3/4 time, so 3 crotchet beats to the bar, and this is something that reminds me a little bit of almost like a congregational hymn, almost like a hymn tune in some ways. It's got some ornaments in it, some trills, and so it's very interesting how Mozart collaborates the violin with the piano in some of the scalic passages. And yeah, it's also very clever that Mozart chooses the key of F major. I think it's very interesting because he could have chosen the relative minor key. I think he could have chosen A minor, but he chose F major. So he still wanted to keep it sunny and radiant, but in a different tempo, obviously, for the slow movement than the one we had before. So we have this wonderful lyrical melody going through, and you'll hear it in the concert. And you've still got time to book for that concert if you'd like to. So, dear friends, please consider coming along to the concert, because this is what we're talking about all the pieces that are in the concert program tonight. So we have, after the andante sostenuto, we had the rondo. Rondo is, of course, a particular form, and often in the classical period, it was always the last movement. So we have like the recurring themes. The opening theme is in the piano, and then we have the accompaniment. And so then we have the violin introducing the theme, and then it goes on with very interesting little interlude episodes. So hopping into the key of G major for a little bit, and it's really exciting how there's a minor episode all of a sudden with a little bit of drama from the piano part, and we have here, so the C major returns, the key of C major comes to, and wraps up the whole piece in a very jubilant fashion. So this is one of my favorites, I have to say. I've got so many favorites of the Mozart sonatas. It's really interesting to play them and to really appreciate the music. I mean, it's not difficult to see why they are so loved by listeners alike across the world, and not only in Europe but also in Australia. But I think that in my home country of Australia, they're not played enough, to be honest. I think a lot of violinists go for the wonderful romantic sonata repertoire and the 20th century Bartok, and many others, Prokofiev, Stravinsky. They go in for the 20th century sonatas a lot in the repertoire these days in Australia, my home country. But I feel that it's kind of like a little bit neglected, I would have to say, the Mozart sonatas in Australia these days. They don't get performed enough, in my humble opinion, and I want to contribute something when I go back mid-year, and I look forward to performing more Mozart in the sonata repertoire in Australia. So we turn over now to the next sonata. So we have here, let me just turn over to the next one here. We have in G major. So this one in G major. And it's actually interesting structurally because only 2 movements in this one. So it's also very fascinating from the point of view of the adagio opening. So this is very slow and very solemn and very rich harmonies here in the opening. You will hear in the opening how the piano leads the violin. So opens with these grand chords, and they really embrace the harmonies and the richness that, of course, we have with the modern piano today. We have the benefit of the pedal and all its extra, the soft pedal and so forth. So we have all these on the modern piano, and it kind of, I feel like that this piece is really suited, I think, to what the modern instruments can give us. So following that slow introduction, which the violin takes up as well, it leads into a mysterious change of key. So we started in G major, and then we go into G minor. So the allegro that follows, so the lively fast section that follows, the slow section, it has a really large piano solo. And I have to say at this point, there is a lot of piano material that you'll notice in this piece. And I have to say, a lot of Mozart's sort of earlier violin sonatas, they were really more meant for the piano than the violin. The violin took on the accompanying role more than the pianist. And then later in Mozart's sonata writing for the 2 instruments, he made the 2 parts equal with one another. But yeah, I think that this piece is more, I guess, a really big task for the pianist, as you'll hear. So lots of florid passages and really fast, virtuosic, really, writing here that follows. So yeah, the allegro here is reminiscent a little bit, leaning to Beethoven style. So Mozart and Beethoven, they admired each other's work. And Beethoven always dreamt to have lessons with Mozart, but unfortunately he never did. He was never able to get those lessons. And so, yeah, Mozart was always traveling and giving concerts all the time. So it was unfortunately something that didn't eventuate for Beethoven. I'm sure he would have been really disappointed. I know that, yeah, if I had been Beethoven, I would have been absolutely devastated. But of course, it's of course a historical fact that they never actually got together to meet and have those lessons. And we have the next section here. So starts to introduce with the Beethoven style chords. There is actually in the second movement that follows, we have something straight out of Beethoven, I think, Pathetique Sonata. There is a C minor chord that just hits you and you think, oh, we have gone to Beethoven right there. It's pretty much the same notes, everything. So it's very interesting. Yeah. And so I just want to mention also this work was composed in 1781 in Vienna. And it was also published, first published in the same year, so 1781. So it just shows you how quickly Mozart was at turning out new pieces. And yeah, he was just incredible. Yeah, Beethoven, by the way, on the other hand, he always took a bit longer over his compositions. And really wanted to change and revise and perfect until he would let them go out. So and be performed. So it's very interesting to know the difference there between the two masters. But yeah, they definitely admired each other's work. And so we have next the second movement, the Andantino Cantabile. So this is just at a very little steady walking pace and in a singing style. So we have in 2/4 this movement, the theme, and then the variations follow. So we have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and yeah, so five variations here. And of course, they're all different naturally, and they have very ingenious exploration of rhythms and some syncopation and some interesting offbeat writing here, which is very fascinating. How also Mozart decides to employ the pizzicato. It's something that you don't really find in Mozart sonatas very often, pretty much. This is a big feature. So I think you could almost say, yeah, it's definitely in the style of Beethoven here as well. Beethoven's violin sonatas have a lot of the pizzicato, while the piano plays the melodic line. So it's a very, very beautiful and masterful effect. And we have, following that adagio pizzicato, so plucking the strings, for anyone out there that's not aware what pizzicato is, so plucking the strings. After that, we have the allegretto, which is the last section of variation 5, and it's very, it's basically a recapitulation of the opening theme. So, yeah, there we have the second violin sonata in our program for tonight. We then have the A major. We go over to the final work in today's concert. So we have A major here, and this is definitely a radiant key with 6/8 as the time signature. So we have 6 quaver beats to the bar, and that signifies a lot of energy and bounce, and it really packs a punch, I have to say, this movement. It almost reminds me of some Schubert, I think, and the way even like the Trout Quintet, who knows Schubert's chamber music out there, I really kind of think of it a lot when I play this one. And the opening movement is Allegro di molto, so this is really fast and lively, and it's certainly yeah, just full of energy, and it just never stops from the word go until we get to the finish of it. And then we have this sonata, by the way, is just in the two movements, but they are so big and expansive actually. So already, like, by Köchel number 305 in the catalogue, Mozart was really starting to explore pretty much like early Beethoven. So early Beethoven also sounds like pretty much early Mozart. Sorry, not early Mozart, but Mozart, yeah. So later in Mozart's writing is like early Beethoven. That's what I wanted to say. And here we have, let's see, 1 second here, just turn back. It's very interesting, the second section of the first movement, how just one bar earlier, so one little split second earlier, he's in the major key, and then he dives straight into the bold transition of E minor. So this is really like a real punch in the guts. This is something really dramatic, and this is heralding, Beethoven. This is preparing the way for Beethoven. And yeah, the two admired each other's work so much. And here you see the same kind of opening rhythm continues. And we have here some accompanying figures of the violin. So it employs off the string bowing. So the bow jumps on the strings a little bit. And that's always one of my favorite parts. And then we have the second movement, which is the theme and theme with variations. So this is andante grazioso. So for those that don't know, this is at a walking pace and gracefully. So in 2/4, so 2 crotchet beats to the bar. So this is really very very sweet and sedate, and it's a break in the tempo from the relentless first movement. Yeah, and so the theme sounds first with the theme in the piano. The violin takes up the theme a little bit later. It's interesting because already Mozart is preparing us for what the piano is going to do in the first variation. Yeah, by having the violin accompany the piano in the opening theme, he's already preparing us for the piano solo in the first variation. So variation 2 is where the violin starts to have the melody and like really have the melody. And yeah, it's a gorgeous melody here and very radiant. And you have to hear it. So please join us, folks, for the concert. You've still got some time. So yeah, you have 20 minutes if you want to go on and book the ticket for our concert. Thank you so much. Yeah, so in variation 3, it's a conversation, like a dialogue between the violin and piano directly here. And yeah, the dovetailing with rhythms in the triplets, figures, and it's very very lyrical, and yeah, just really amazing how Mozart just blends in with those two instruments. So we turn over to variation 4, and here we have the most incredible, serene, and radiant melody, and it really gets to me every time I play it. It's just really amazing. Yeah, it's just something that lifts me up to another place, I think. As you know, my auntie passed away last week, just a few days ago, and so it's been a difficult few days. But yeah, thanks to all the friends for caring to reach out. And yeah, so we have the fifth variation. I'm sorry, we have the fifth variation here, and we have interesting transition here at the minor key, and yeah, it's interesting. I mean, anyone can guess what minor key that Mozart decided to use. It's of course the A minor tonality that he's turned to. Yeah, and he starts to put little florid figures in the violin, which is interesting. So, and also a lot of unison material. So the violin and piano are actually playing the same notes as each other, and the same rhythms. So then we close off this wonderful piece with the sixth variation. So variation number 6, the last one, which is Allegro, and this is in a very quick and lively 3/8 time. So we have the 3 quavers in the bar. So 1 2 3 1 2 3. This kind of rhythm, yeah. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and it's almost like you feel just on the first bit. It's like 1 in a bar. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 all the way. So it's really also a very delightful finish to this magnificent work. Yeah, so we have the chords, of course, those typical pack-a-punch chords to finish this amazing piece. So yeah, this is, as I said, one of Mozart's best loved, but it's still not often played, and particularly in my home country. I have to say I don't hear many violinists programming the Mozart violin sonatas. And I think perhaps some of the reason for that is a couple of them. I mean, you need a formidable pianist. That's one thing for sure to collaborate with, and secondly, I think it's just kind of not quite what, I mean, in the opinion of a lot of violinists, they prefer to program the romantic repertoire because it's more engaging maybe for the audience. But I kind of disagree. I mean, if that's the reason for some of the desire to program the more romantic things, I think I tend to a little bit disagree with that personally. I think that Mozart deserves these works that are not often played. We need to hear them more, and it's so important that we have the chance to travel to Australia and to play them for you all live in the concert hall. And so this is why, dear friends, we are programming these online concerts every week. This is why we come to you and say, please join us for the online concert, because really, you don't know what you're missing. This music is some of the greatest ever written for violin. And so I just appeal to you once again, please don't be indifferent. Please join us. We need an audience online, dear friends. We have to share this. We can't keep it to ourselves. This is too good to keep to ourselves. You understand that if we just practice at home and we rehearse at home, that's one thing. But it's very selfish of a musician to only play for themselves. That's what music is all about, friends. We want to share it with you all. So just for your information, all the ticket proceeds from today will go to directly supporting the travel expenses for the concert tour planned for this year. And dear friends, in closing, I just want to say what a privilege it is to play these. It's really something that we are delighted to be able to do for you. But of course, it's a shame when we see how people feel that classical music is not for them. You don't even need to be a classical music fan to love Mozart. I can tell you that. In all honesty, I think that Mozart, I mean, if you walk down the street and you say to someone, you've heard of Mozart? Everyone will say, yeah, of course. I mean, his music from the Symphony Number 40 to the Alla Turca Rondo to many other Eine kleine Nacht music, all these pieces that trademark Mozart's style. I mean, of course, we know all those, but it's time, friends, to explore the ones that are not so often played. Because if we don't play them, no one will be able to appreciate them. So this is why we come online and introduce these works to you as a way of educational opportunity for you to learn more about these wonderful pieces. So, dear friends, that wraps up our fun facts about Mozart for today. And in just a little bit, we will start. So in 25 minutes time, we will start our recital. And once again, the program comprising of 3 violin sonatas, which we just discussed in detail here. So we open with the C major Köchel 296, followed by the G major sonata 379 is the Köchel number, and closing with the sonata in A major Köchel 305. So, till next time, till next week's fun facts about Mozart, it's bye for now. And don't forget, you still have 15 minutes to jump on that ticket link and enjoy some incredible Mozart music. So, thanks everyone, and see you next time. Bye.